Everybody set? Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, V Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Alan Singer.
Welcome again, Dr. Alan Singer, educated historian, regular with Media Watch and our veteran journalist. We're doing this the Wednesday before our Monday air. I believe it's August, what, 12th?
14th.
Lost 2 days, 14th of August. And it may show up on Manhattan Neighborhood Network next Monday. It'll definitely be up on our YouTube channel and maybe a couple other places. But a lot of stuff going on. We will not try to do any blow-by-blow ball game, horse race stuff. We try to do some perspective as we usually try. But since it's called Media Watch, Bob, you've got a headline story that just broke a couple of days ago that's really distressing, but understandable the way media works these days. Bottom line, money. Go.
Yeah, I mean, on Monday, we found out that the legendary All News radio station here in New York, WCBS News Radio 880, will end its history as a news station in a couple of weeks on August 26th, just after midnight in the early morning, and it's being replaced by ESPN Sports. Now, this, if you grew up in New York like we did with AM radio, listening to the breaking news in the morning over breakfast or in the car, this is big because WCBS 880 AM is one of the few clear channel powerful stations that can be heard as far south as Philadelphia. And so it's a major loss to the New York City radio landscape. Yes, we still have 1010 wins as 24-hour news, but as a colleague, his name is Steve Dunlop, used to be an anchor on Channel 4 in New York, tells me that 1010 wins has an east-west antenna to protect the station in Toronto. So we don't have the same kind of coverage. We're losing some all news coverage in the area. And to be replaced with by ESPN, which is the same network that replaced KISS 98.7 FM in 2012, taking away one of the great Black-owned, Black-oriented channels in the city. So this is the second time ESPN has replaced something iconic on the radio landscape, and it's a major loss for the news people and the editors. I mean, 9/11, God, we got through it listening to 880 because somehow they were broadcasting from the Empire State Building, so they stayed on the air. So this is a major loss for the New York landscape.
Yeah, major folks came out of CBS 880. Ed Bradley used to do stories on 880. Jane Tillman Irving used to report for WCBS Radio 88 or 880. It's a major loss. I'm saying what you're saying. Bottom line, though, they claimed they had 2 all-news stations and they didn't really need 24 all-news stations, even though you explain why. Different orientation antenna, different reach, but it boils down to we need to make money, right?
Just to give you a sense, if you drive north on the thruway, you could get traffic and weather reports on CBS up to Kingston, but you can't get traffic and weather on winds really after you get past the Tappan Zee Bridge. And the other thing, Bob, maybe you could speak about this. They got rid of their call numbers and stuff, their name, so they become a different corporation. I think that means they're going to lay off all of their workers and people have no recourse because WCBS News Radio no longer exists.
I think you're right, because it's happened. And I guess we should point out that the owner of WCBS News Radio 88 is Odyssey. They used to be called Entercom, but it's Odyssey now, the big streaming outfit. And like when I was a newspaper reporter years ago, after I left the morning paper the Milwaukee Sentinel merged with the Milwaukee Journal, the afternoon paper, and they started a new paper, and they told the staff, well, it's a new paper. You need to reapply for your jobs. The old establishment doesn't exist. So I think you're right, Alan. In retiring the iconic call letters WCBS in favor of what? WHSQ? It means that, probably means that there's nothing for the old employees to look back towards. They're basically laid off, and what's done is done.
Back to my point, bottom line money.
Yeah.
I hate to be cynical, but hey, I remember back in the day when news operations, because they were using a public airways public service at major networks, they weren't worried about the bottom line because they were actually using the public's airwaves. And so they felt that they could make money on their commercial stuff and subsidize their news operation and not worry about that bringing in bottom line dollars. That's no longer the case. So that's 21st century economics, and who cares about serving the public? But speaking of media and economics and money, Truth Social, that's a media outlet, right? It's a social online media outlet.
It's a misnomer, misnamed.
Thanks, Ray. I was going to say the same thing, but go ahead.
Definitely the title is not correct, but social media platforms are actually media platforms, correct?
Yeah.
So it got thrown under the bus because the guy who founded it, Donald T. Rump, decided he was going to have a sit-down tete-a-tete with Elon Musk, which, who wants to jump in on that? Because the bottom line was, billionaire Elon Musk took over Twitter, which became X when he took it over, after X had banned Donald Trump for fomenting a coup against the government of the United States. And he was banned like for life, practically. He'd have to reapply and people would have to pass judgment. But no, but his response to that was to set up Truth Social. Alan, you got to take on Truth Social. He set up Truth Social, I guess, to have a platform, or was it to make money, or both? What was that?
It's a little of both, I think.
Well, the thing with Truth Social is it has no earnings. It's a scam. What Trump did is he claimed he was setting up this new media to propagate his ideas, and then it went public, and they sold shares. Trump held, I don't know, half the shares, 70% of the shares.
60-something%, yes.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is they go public, declaring the company's worth something like $6 billion, which meant that Trump, with his shares, would be very wealthy, might be able to pay his legal bills. But what happens is he then advertises for the MAGA horde to invest in social media. So all these little guys are putting their savings to show their love and support for Trump into social media or its parent company.
Into Truth Social, yeah.
Social, but the reality is it's not worth anything, and its value has collapsed. Its paper value has collapsed, and all these little MAGA guys who put their life savings into it keep losing money. Now, if Trump, under the condition of going public, Trump was not able to sell his shares and cash in. But if Trump basically abandons Truth Social to switch back to X, because X has a much bigger following, all these MAGA people who love Trump are going to be bankrupt. And these are the little guys who run to all his events so he could have big crowds.
Well, the story that I saw said, it's not as if those people weren't warned that Donald Trump does stuff like this all the time, and ends up getting sued for whatever, the Trump University, down the tubes, the Trump whatever state company that he was selling stick, down the tubes, the Trump casino, whatever, the casino, down the tubes. What is, as the Arthur, I think it was a USA Today story that I read. It's not like these folks weren't warned. It's not like they
Trump
know who
put
he is.
no money into his own media company.
So
He got shares because he
Okay.
gave it his name. What Trump does is he markets his name. He never puts his own money into it.
Never, never.
So he jumped on to X, formerly Twitter, with what you call him, Elon Musk,
Elon Musk.
the guy that I feel is epitome of racist, whatever. But his platform has been accused by many a person of just a platform for racist misogyny right now. But I didn't make that up. It's been quoted by a number of stuff. Matter of fact, he's in a Twitter war. He's been challenged by a former politician in England of defaming his stuff. And so the guy's threatening a suit. And Musk is saying, make my day. I'll be happy for you to sue me. But Bob, tell us a little about how that I'm going to go talk to my buddy Elon Musk went as part of our media coverage. How did it go, this sit down with Elon Musk by T Rump?
Well, I didn't listen to it live. I picked up some snippets, but I do know that it didn't get off to a good start. It was delayed by 40 minutes by a technical glitch. And then what was supposed to be an interview or a conversation that covered the subjects of the world just sort of devolved almost immediately. There was nothing there. There was hardly anything reportable, and yeah, it was a mess. Just like the MarAlago press conference, Elon basically didn't do. I mean, he's allegedly a smart guy. He did no type of fact-checking, questioning. He just pumped his friend Donald Trump for whatever and let him say whatever he wanted to do. Wow. Basically expanding the misinformation that we're used to.
Told us that's what he was going to do. He said, "Oh, it's going to be a conversation with two bros," or something to that effect. But speaking of, I saw headlines like unmitigated disaster, a total another synonym for disaster.
Yes. There's one that we can't use here, which right. Starts with cluster.
Yes.
But
that's what almost came out of my mouth.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. I tried to pick up snippets. I tried to use the little slider at the bottom to move backwards and forwards and find something worth listening to. I couldn't find anything.
Mentioned,
and I'm not being facetious. I literally couldn't find anything worth stopping to listen to.
You mentioned the fact that it was almost as bad, if not worse, than the MarAlago press conference. To double back on that, Alan, did you see something or call up something about Lawrence O'Donnell?
Yes. And
the way I heard, excoriated MSNBC and the rest of the media for rushing down to MarAlago for a press conference that was nothing but another wall of lies? What was that?
Well, they gave live coverage to Trump for an hour. And it was basically, he meanders, he rambles, he lies, he's unhinged. And what happens is they treat the media treat this, whatever it is, as if it's a news item. And what Lawrence O'Donnell said is, we learned this in 2016. We're giving this guy free TV time, and this is not news. And he criticized his own station, MSNBC, for doing it. And he said, we have to stop. Why are we giving him free advertising when he's unhinged?
I got tweets from my kids when that was happening. My kids follow this stuff. It's, oh no, you got to catch Lawrence. Lawrence is excoriating MSNBC and the rest of the media for giving this guy just this platform. But out of that press conference and that Elon Musk stuff, I finally started to see the rest of the media talking about how demented T Rump actually is. They're actually now calling out the fact that all his rambling meanderings, all his Hannibal Lecter references, all that craziness is just that, craziness. They're actually starting to say this man is demented. I'm not making this up. I'm not actually telling you that they are finally coming to grips with the fact that this is a crazy man that the Republicans want to put on the top of their have put on the top of their ticket to run for the presidency of the United States, to run this country. What do you guys have to say about what you're seeing and hearing about how this stuff is now being treated?
Well, the one funny thing, he keeps talking about how his crowd size is bigger than anybody else's. And I really think crowd size is a male penis metaphor.
Well, which goes to his craziness. Yes, okay, I can agree with that.
And Ray, we were saying before we went on air, you were saying about how, you know, you are not at all surprised that you know, but you're wondering why it took people so long to realize he was as crazy as he is.
I was. I mean, you know, this is not news that the man is unhinged, that he's nuts, that he has never lived up to any promise that he's ever made, that many of his statements are false. I mean, he's like, I don't believe it. He can be standing there and he's telling you something that is not true, that you can see, but as it's happening, he's lying about it. I've seen him do this. It's just insane. And it didn't take me 8 years to figure this out. It took me less than 8 seconds to figure it out. So I don't get it. You know, the media, shame on the media, because you're right. They haven't started calling him out until now. And I'm embarrassed by that, because we're supposed to, you know, people say false media. And I don't want to believe that. I'd like to believe that there's still some integrity left in the media. But I got to tell you that 8 years of their silence on his mental state, or apparent mental state, has left me a little embarrassed, being a former journalist, and totally overwhelmed as a human being. I mean, you know, why don't you tell me this? That's why I listen to the news, to find out what's going on.
Yeah, that's why you're here on Media Watch, because you're not a former journalist. You are one of the media stalwarts. So, but let's use him.
I don't know. I still like the truth. Let me tell you, you know, that's all I can say.
Well, we strive to at least call it like we see it and analyze some of the stuff. So that's why you're here, to help us do that. But here's my thing about this guy. Not only did he ramble and do all that craziness, but in that Musk sit down, he actually came up with something that's part of that subconscious. He said to Musk, well, if I lose the election, I'm paraphrasing, next time we'll meet in Venezuela. Okay, so Venezuela is the country, that's now attacking the opposition. That's actually Maduro claimed he won an election, and so basically he says, "Oh, that's my kind of guy. Let me go to his place for safe haven, because he talks like I talk. You don't win an election, you claim you won it." So
that's the Trump playbook.
Yeah.
At least update us on what's going on in the Venezuelan election, since we know that the EU refuses to recognize Maduro. But Alan, what have you seen about the other countries that have or have not?
Well, as far as I can tell, no one is accepting the election results until there's an investigation.
That's Brazil's position. Brazil said, we can't call you president until we've seen the documentation that we know exists to prove that you won that election.
Right. The opposition,
and the U.S. isn't recognizing the election yet either. Go ahead, Alan. Sorry about that.
The opposition conducted exit polls. And exit polls are always questionable, but the exit polls that they conducted showed the opposition winning overwhelmingly.
Yeah, they also got some of the paperwork at some of the polling places that showed that they actually won in those places that he claimed 50% victory. So that's why they say we're not giving up. And besides the EU, I read a story where Panama decided they would try to help broker something by offering Maduro asylum if he would acknowledge defeat and leave the country. But a lot of folks say, well, you can't offer him asylum. He may be brought up on charges of all kinds of crimes against humanity for the people. What, 23 people? Is it 23 people that were killed or injured to try to stay in power at the result of this election? Because
Isn't
of
there room
demonstrations?
for him to stay at MarAlago?
No, for him, no. Panama's offering, no, not MarAlago. Asylum in Panama somewhere, not MarAlago. But his government supposedly is cracking down on the opposition by killing people to stay in power, which I believe they did the last election. So he may be brought up on all kinds of human rights abuses. So they're saying to Panama, forget that offer. Basically what the rest is. But the Organization of American States is not acting in any foreseeable, forceful manner to try to force him out. And the United States and a bunch of the other democracies are tiptoeing around what kind of enforcement or pressure they can put on Maduro, because they don't want to trigger more killings and more whatever against the opposition. I think our country is worried about the fact that if they impose more sanctions, more Venezuelans are going to flee the country. We're going to have more problems on the southern border, which may be an election year problem for the Democratic Party. All kinds of reasons for why they're not cracking down on this guy, even though the exit polls, some of the documented paperwork show that he actually lost. So, hey, that's where we are with Venezuela.
The OAS, Organization of American States, has said they will not recognize him because of the irregularities.
Right.
The problem that they face is a lot of those countries also have their own issues, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Brazil. And to take a more forceful stand against what's going on in Venezuela could also bring attention to their own domestic politics. And I think
So
that's a concern.
he may get away with it again. He got away with it the last time. So, but anyway.
One thing that I really liked, I was in Mexico in the spring, and the former mayor of Mexico City was elected president of Mexico. She is I think she won a Nobel Prize winning scientist who is just bright, articulate, and honest. I was wondering maybe she could become president of the United States. But now we have Kamala Harris, who may be a good match for her. So, but a lot of these countries have bad reps when it comes to elections.
All right. So we're not going to pressure Venezuela any more than we're pressuring them right now to try to get Maduro out. That's basically the bottom line on the update of that story, even though the EU won't recognize them. And Brazil said, show us the documentation before we call you president. And OAS won't recognize them. Organization.
Right. It looks like the pressure is going to have to come from inside. Yeah.
And that's what the opposition said. The young lady, what's her name, Machado, she told the PBS reporter that I saw last night on that report that they're not giving up. They know they won. And they're going to try to have peaceful demonstrations nonstop until the rest of the world and Maduro concede and give in to the fact that their candidate actually won. So
and we're about at 4 minutes.
Okay, in 4 minutes, quick, what updates can we give our viewers on stories that have been neglected? Or Bangladesh, no more rioting in the streets because the Nobel laureate, I think poet or poet, the commission actually selected him to help run the country when the previous leader fled due to lots of demonstrations out of what was going on. And the demonstrations have calmed down. There was no military takeover. It looks like they might work their way back to some kind of stability, which is good news. I haven't seen much about Haiti, except that there were peacekeepers from Kenya did arrive, but the vehicles that they were riding around with trying to keep the peace, Bobby said they didn't have any turrets.
They didn't have any turrets. They supplied them with armored vehicles, but they didn't have any turrets, so they couldn't shoot back at the people who were shooting at them.
Yeah,
really stupid, but we'll see what they get in the future.
We'll see how Haiti develops. We know that there is not much progress, even though tomorrow the negotiators are going to meet to try to move the Gaza peace plan along. But Alan, you keep telling us that Netanyahu keep pushing the goalposts, and other people keep telling us that Hamas is still being translated. What do you got for us on that, Alan?
Look, this has been Israel's strategy since 1973. And one of the former generals, Ariel Sharon, he called this strategy facts on the ground. And what Ariel Sharon said is, we will negotiate forever. But while we were negotiating, we are going to be absorbing more and more territory, creating more and more settlements. So it will be impossible to remove us. And that is what Israel did with Oslo Accords. Each time it looked like there may be some resolution, what Israel does is it moves the line. And that's what Netanyahu is doing now. Every time it looks like there might be a ceasefire, then he goes, well, no, we need this, we need this, we need this. Because Netanyahu does not want a ceasefire. Among other things, he is his own country. While they support the nation at war, they do not support him. He is at risk of being defeated, of being arrested because of his behavior as prime minister before. So he is torpedoing negotiations, and the world has got to respond to this. One of the things that was so disturbing is that two of the members of the squad, members of Congress, who have pointed this out, Jamal Bowman of New York and Cori Bush of St. Louis, were both defeated in their primaries because of enormous millions of dollars given to the campaigns of their opponent by AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, because they don't want, along with Netanyahu, any examination of what is actually taking place there.
Okay, we're about out of time.
We have about 30 seconds.
Okay, in 30 seconds, what can we tell people? This has been Media Watch, folks. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
No, I'm Raymond Peterson.
And I'm Alan Singer.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
And with that, folks, we'll catch you the next time. Stay safe.